Hi, and welcome to another episode of the NOTSTEAM Productions Untitled podcast. That's gotten horribly wrong, but it doesn't matter because today is our Halloween special. I'm Grimshaw, I'm wearing a witch's hat, and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague, assistant, badass sidekick.
I'm nobody's sidekick. I'll just put that out there now.
You are my sidekick. You are my familiar.
True. No, I will stomp my feet on this. Nope. But yeah, it's me, it's Liam. Hi guys. I'm not wearing a hat.
No, you're not. You're wearing a Manchester City. I nearly said United.
Yeah.
I don't know
you
my
be
football.
Getting a slap.
I don't really know my football. We've established this. But yeah. We're doing a spooky episode in honour of Halloween, one of my favourite holidays. I'm not much into believing in spirits and ghosts, but I like the idea of a lot of them, and I have ADHD, so I have a wild imagination.
That's cool. And a little disclaimer from me, it's well established on this pod already that I'm not a dude that's into horror or that sort of genre.
So you're going to hate this episode.
Kind of, yeah. So that's sort of going to be my part in this. I'm going to be a little bit of a poo-pooer, but in a good way.
Yeah.
But I quite enjoy dark shit, so I'll be talking about a lot of that.
I think there's going to be definitely a lot of dark shit coming up. But yeah, let's kickstart by having a bit of a spooky opening.
Ooh.
A spooky opening. So what have you been playing? What have you been watching? Let's hope it's spooky, otherwise the whole bit's ruined.
Well, so, as you know, I've been playing a lot of Chivalry 2. And they've got a Halloween event on.
Oh, have they?
They have. Where, bit like the only thing that I've noticed, to be honest, there might be some other bits that I've not seen or unlocked or something, but there's a few different, basically helmets that you can unlock that just look like giant pumpkins, and they've got like spooky faces on them and stuff. So there's that, a scythe. Like they've introduced a two-handed weapon that's a scythe, or a scythe, whatever it's called. Death carries.
Yeah, a sickle scythe.
Yeah, one of them. So that's about as sort of spooky as it gets with what I've been playing and watching, I guess.
There was one thing.
Yep, that was well, I did one, managed one.
Well,
yeah, like playing and watching, and anything else, like nothing new to report really. I have got downloaded, which I probably should have played because it is a little bit spooky. The sequel to A Plague Tale.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the one with all the rats and everything.
I think you've spoken about that before on the podcast.
Yeah, I've spoken about the first one, but the second one's out now, and that came straight to Game Pass. I've got it downloaded. I just haven't started on that yet. But that looks really good. It's something like they can get 10,000 rats on the screen now.
Yeah.
So it's like a tidal wave of rats, which that's pretty cool.
It's Focus Interactive that's published it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
See, there are games because remember Vampire when that first got announced?
Or is it Vampire?
Vampire.
You're on about the one where it's VAMPYR.
Yeah.
Is it set in London or something?
It's set in London. Yeah, it's set in London during the 1920s, 1930s, during the Spanish flu epidemic.
Yeah.
And you basically it's got some pretty cool concepts. So the idea is that you've got a finite number of NPCs that you can feed off or extract information out to unlock more of the game. But it's horrible. It's horrible to play.
Yeah, it's not great. I think you've got to remember as well, a lot of what Focus Interactive publish, they're made by sort of smaller teams. You wouldn't call them AAA games.
I get that, but the way that they sort of presented it and the way that they made it seem like this sort of really cool sandboxy style game where, you could, it just wasn't what was offered. And, hats off to them. They also made a Call of Cthulhu game, which, again, isn't to my liking. I've tried playing a little bit of it, as much as I love H.P. Lovecraft's writings.
Is that the XCOM-y one?
No, it's kind of similar to like Dishonored or Prey, but you play as a detective. You've got to go around to the house and like figure out.
Oh, the Sinking City.
Yeah, well, there's Sinking City, and then there's Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is based on an older video game, but that's by From Software, not From Software, Focus Interactive.
Yeah.
Well, fine. I'll carry the lead on the spookiness, shall I?
Go for it.
I've been watching Haunted 28 Days, which is kind of nonsense. It's basically a bunch of people that all stay in a supposed haunted house. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the properties that they pick are kind of creepy. Like, there was one house that, like, they went into. It was like a store, and they went into the basement, and there was a jail cell inside this store, which obviously exists way back before sort of it was filmed. But there's like little things like that they find, but there's always
is it a reality show?
Yeah. So it's a reality show where if they can survive 28 days in a haunted place, and
when you say survive,
well, yeah, if they can last.
What? Right. And what about food and stuff? Like, do they have like amenities so that they can sleep comfortably? And
I don't think it went too far into it, to be honest, in regards to that. But the premise was quite simple. They tried to survive. Again, survive. Why am I using that word? There's nothing going to hurt them. They try to last hanging out with each other until they eventually all go a bit insane and drop out for various reasons. If you sort of want a bit of mindless shenanigans that are kind of fun to laugh at, then it's worth a watch. But if you're wanting solid sort of like I showed you the Ghost Files, where it was those two guys, one of them being like a huge skeptic. If you want anything like that, it's not. It's very much like they 100% believe that
of course
they're being haunted.
So do all the people that go into the house, are they all believers? I guess?
So there was like one or two that were skeptics, but like, are you?
Yeah, well, yeah, what do they win? Something? Is there a cash prize?
I think they won like 10 grand or something.
Oh, so yeah, I'd do it for 10 grand. I just sit there, I just enjoy my time.
I'd do it for fucking 50p.
Like, not a month. No.
To be fair, 28 days, right? They could extend it to 45 days and call it the Liz Truss experiment.
Yeah. Although it's a much different vibe.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to get that joke in there.
Nice.
Shortest reigning Prime Minister.
Mental.
I've also not watched it recently, but I rewatched the first one. Fear Street, which is the trilogy that came out the other year on
Netflix.
Yeah. It's very good. I really enjoyed all three films. It's not often that horror series will do like a franchise or like a trilogy, and I'll think it's pretty decent because each time you usually lose something from what initially made it scary. It's actually based on the guy that wrote Goosebumps.
R.L. Stine?
Yeah, R.L. Stine. It's based more on his teenage, more like late teens book.
Oh, it's actually based on him?
Well, no, it's based on books that he's written.
Oh, right, sorry, that's aimed at like the older teens.
Yeah, it's aimed on older teens.
Yeah, I get you.
Like Goosebumps was like sort of 13 to 15.
Yeah.
Fear Street was like 15 to 18. And And it's actually really good. It's kind of a fun film. It's got very Stranger Things vibe to it, especially like with the soundtrack and it being set in the 90s and stuff. So that's really good. I fully recommend that. And in terms of playing, been playing more Resident Evil 8. I really like it because it is kind of more of the same in terms of Resident Evil 7, but with newer settings and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we mentioned on the last time that actually it's not been aired yet, so this one might actually end up airing before the previous one, so there might be a bit of back and forth. But we said about how it was like werewolves that were attacking you. It's not just werewolves. There's fish people, and there's like vampires, and like zombies.
I knew there was vampires. Yeah.
No, but like actual smaller vampires, like enemy, like you sort of like grunt enemies.
Right. Yeah.
And there's really good way that they've done. So like sometimes when video games they'll hit like a formula and they'll always have like a level that's kind of the same as one that came before it.
Yeah.
Well, they've kind of done that, but the way they've done it kind of works for what they're going for. So in Resident Evil 7, because I can spoil that because it came out like 2016.
Yep.
You enter like an escape room. And you've got to like hand your weapons over, so you're unarmed. And your whole objective is that you've got to find out the clues for this escape room and escape. They've basically done the same thing in Resident Evil 8, but changed it round a little bit. Okay. I have a feeling that you probably won't like it because it sums up to basically be a dream sequence. But the way they sort of get round it kind of works for me.
Yeah.
Then one final shout out to the Dark Anthology series, which I've started. It's from the makers of Until Dawn, Supermassive Games. It's not really a game.
It's one of those interactive movie sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's kind of fun, I just like making the worst decisions possible.
Yeah, see, that's usually the way I go with those kind of games. I think they're quite fun to play, almost like couch co-op, in a way, like you can watch it with, whoever.
So,
you make the decisions
They have introduced, on the Dark Anthology series, they've introduced something that's called movie mode, and you can only you can only do it if you play in two-player. Okay. And what it effectively sums up is that it gets rid of the more interactive bits. So, where you've got to, walk around and stuff. And it's more just like watching a movie. And you make decisions, as they come up. I think there's, a few button presses that you've got to do, sort of, quick time events. But for the most part, it's just the sort of cinematic version. So that's pretty cool.
For God's sake.
It is worth playing. You've disappeared again.
Oh, we're back.
And I said it was one last mention, but I haven't technically been playing this, so it's an honorary mention.
Go on,
and that's Silent Hill.
What, the original?
The remake that they're doing. Finally, that they've kind of confirmed.
Yeah, they have, yeah. And they've announced another game as well, Silent Hill F, which is going to be set in 60s Japan.
Ooh,
which I knew, as soon as I saw it, I thought this could be right up his street.
Yeah. I'm still butthurt about the Silent Hills that Hideo Kojima was working on got cancelled.
Yeah.
Because it was Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
Probably butchered the pronunciation of his name. I love you. You're an amazing director. Carry on making Hellboy films. Don't let the other guy do it. But you know what I mean? I was so excited for that because PT, which was the playable teaser for the future of Silent Hills.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, one of the best horror games I've ever played, because it was just so fucking simple that it was terrifying, because there was this sense of not wanting to go forward but also not wanting to stand still. So you just had this, like, you were tense the entire time. And then because of legal issues and regardless, they removed it from PlayStation Store. So not only was Silent Hills project cancelled, they removed the only semblance of what we had, which was a brilliant, terrifying experience with a ghost named Lisa.
Lisa.
That woman's fucking terrifying. She shit me up.
See, I've seen loads of footage of it, and I get it. Like, it looks scary. But what I don't get is, like, why do that to yourself? It's like, remember Slender Man? And all, like, that was creepy as well. And
see, I've got that game, and I can't get into it. Like, because so
you just run away. It's very simple as well, isn't it? It's like you see him and then you run. And...
Well, no, because there's an objective to it. You've basically got to find these, like, notepads or, like, these pages in a diary entry. There's like 5 in the map. So you've got to, like, find them all, and then when you find them, that's when you've completed the level. Oh my god. Apologies to if this doesn't get edited out, because just in case. I'm just burping constantly. That beer is very gassy. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Slenderman. And I just don't enjoy it.
Slenderman. Like Slenderman. John Slenderman.
Good old Slendy. I just don't enjoy it. I just think it's a bit shit.
Yeah.
Like, if you want something like that that's better, go for Amnesia.
Okay, what's that?
So Amnesia was a game that came out back in 2010. It's quite an old one now.
Yeah.
But it was one of the very first to sort of nail that sort of, like, cat and mouse style gameplay, where you've no weapons, you've nothing to really do to keep yourself from getting killed. The only thing that you can do is run and hide. And it's just set in, like, a very creepy, sort of Lovecraftian reality. They've done 3, I believe, now. So there's Amnesia something, Amnesia Machine of Pigs, and then another Amnesia something.
It's a strange way to name your games, I must say.
They're very forgettable.
Hey, I like it. Amnesia.
So, moving on. There's a ghost in your house. Who are you going to call, Liam?
Well, I'm going to call me boy Luigi.
Smart man.
Do you know why?
Go on.
Because he's experienced. I'll be honest, I very nearly went with the Ghostbusters from the Ghostbusters game. Because, like, I never actually played that game, but it looks pretty cool. And that's literally the Ghostbusters. That's who you really want. But I thought, no, it's a bit too obvious. And thought, yeah, Luigi. Like, big fan of Luigi. I like a lot of his work, whether he's Ghostbusting or not. And yeah, I've still not played Luigi's Mansion 3. It's one of those that we've spoken about, I think, privately. I'm not sure we spoke about it on the pod, but the price of the first-party Nintendo games... We've
spoken about it on the pod a few times.
Yeah, so
Nintendo.
I want to wait till it. Yeah, I want to, because I really want to play it, but I'm not paying £50 for a Luigi's Mansion 3 game. No chance.
This is it, and I know this is probably not that terrifying, but if you look at the price of Nintendo games, that shit will stop your heart. But, like, one of the things that always puts me off in Nintendo games and actually getting involved with a franchise is the cost of the game, because the odd ones that I've bought that, like, I thought, like, because I had Super Paper Mario on Wii, which I got. I think I got with my Wii, which a horrible name for a console.
I disagree.
Do you?
I think it's great. Everybody had a Wii.
Everybody does have a Wii.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I got that, and it was okay, but it was just kind of And I thought, well, I'll try another Mario game, but then I went, and they were like 40 odd quid or 30 odd quid.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nah, I'm all right. I've played one.
Yeah.
I don't need to play another. So like, I've only ever committed to ones like Zelda or Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because I've played I've played every single Pokemon game that's come out, apart from some of the newer ones, because they're starting to bring them all out too often and too quick. So now,
they've sort of mixed, like, they've sort of got two-pronged attack now, Nintendo. They've got the new Arceus series, which they've said is going to be like a standalone series now.
Pokemon Legends.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So that'll be sort of one branch, if you like, and then they're going to have the traditional games as well. But then they throw in stuff like Pokemon Snap, and...
I've never played any of them.
No, I've never been a fan of stuff like that. But there was the... Was it called Mystery Dungeon or something?
So that was for DS. That you actually played as a Pokemon.
Yeah, but didn't you play as a person that had been changed into a Pokemon?
Yeah.
And then you start talking to all these other Pokemon. It's like, what the hell? And I remember as well in the first one. Up. Yeah, because you go around rescuing people. Well, other Pokemon. But I remember at the start of the game, you don't get to choose your starter, like whatever Pokemon it is you change into. You just answer a bunch of questions at the start, and then it assigns you a certain Pokemon. And I remember playing it the first time, and it assigned me as like Eevee, and I thought, no, that's boring. I don't want to be Eevee, because I know you can't evolve in the game. So nah, it's pointless. So I did it 2 or 3 more times until I got the one that I wanted, Charmander.
Charmander's a good solid choice, to be honest.
Of course.
Did you know, in terms of the Pokemon games, whilst there's no confirmed difficulty settings, there actually is, depending on which starter Pokemon you pick.
So, well, it's not really a difficulty setting. It's
the
first
curve.
It's like the first 3 bosses. What do they call them? Gyms.
Yeah, they're usually rock and water.
Yeah, so if you start with the grass, it's easy.
If you start with water, it's
middling, yeah.
Middling. And if you start with fire, you're usually fucked unless you can catch some decent Pokemon.
See, that's usually the way I do it, because I tend to find that there's less decent fire Pokemon that you can go and catch. So I'd rather start with a good one and then build my team up that way.
So I typically fluctuate between water type and fire type. We're getting too much into Pokemon, and this is meant to be a Halloween episode. I'm getting distracted. Do you know who I'm calling if we have a ghost in the house? I'm calling the ghost of Bruce Lee.
What?
Yeah, I'm calling.
From what game?
Doesn't have to be a game. Doesn't have to be a game.
Right. You didn't stipulate that, but okay.
I'm pretty certain I did. Hang on. I said insert character here. I didn't say VG character.
True.
Poor planning,
but
my friend.
So I'd love to know how you're going to contact the ghost of Bruce Lee.
I'll hold a seance and get Enter the Dragon out on DVD and just put it in the centre. And
so it doesn't matter where you are. Would you not have to go to I don't know, China or something?
I think he died in LA, but
yeah,
no.
True. That's the point. Yeah.
No, because an essence of Bruce Lee is in every Bruce Lee DVD that's ever
Is
sold.
it? Is right? Okay.
It was part of
I'll let you off then.
It was part of his contract. A little bit of his blood was kept, and they put his essence in. All his merchandise, anything you buy, comes with the essence of Bruce Lee.
No wonder he died young. Christ.
Yeah, because they were stealing all his blood.
Yep.
No, he died tragically in a
He got
accident.
shot. Yeah.
No, he didn't get shot. That was
He
his
did.
son. No,
No, he got shot on set.
No, that was his son. He died after during a stunt. It was a stunt that went wrong. He died a couple of days later in hospital. It was his son that got shot during the filming of The Crow, which we watched last night.
Yeah, no, I know about that, but no, I'm pretty sure Bruce Lee was as well. Anyway, we're getting slightly off point.
We're getting off point.
Yeah, so what is Ghost Bruce Lee gonna do to this poltergeist that we've got? Or
Kung Fu. He's just gonna kick the shit out of him.
Is it?
Yeah, he's just gonna kick the shit out of him.
So instead of getting a Ghostbuster round to actually deal with the ghost, you're just going to have a ghost scrap going down in your house.
Yeah. I'll
put
it on pay-per-view.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, but ghosts can't die?
I didn't say that I wanted to kill the ghost. He's already dead. I don't need to do that again.
Well, so he'll beat him up, but then the ghost is still there.
Well, no, because he's going to kick him out from it. I've got it sorted, don't worry. I only thought of this answer about 5 minutes ago, so...
That may or may not be why I'm drilling you on it,
but I'm pretty certain I could just give you an answer to everything. Just
put it this way as well. Luigi,
he has
with his little vacuum cleaner on his back, he would beat Ghost Bruce Lee. Because he's set up to beat Ghost.
Well, that's it. Because what would happen if, I got Bruce Lee to twat this ghost, but what if they became friends?
Yeah, well, this is it. I think that's the risky running there.
They connected over ghostly hobbies that they have.
Who's Ghostly? Is that
Ghostly?
Is that Bruce's mate?
Turns out to be his cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your option's probably better, because I'd probably have to hire him afterwards.
Well, that's it, yeah. Your answer for dealing with a ghost was, let's get another ghost in.
It's the only way.
That's a good one, I like it.
One of yous just go and check tea.
Oh, brilliant. Well, should we go on to our next section? Our little list for the week that we've gone for this week. We've gone for 5... sort of favourite, creepy or dark films.
Yeah. So, obviously, when I was writing this, I was leaning more towards my favourite horror movies.
Of course.
But, obviously, I understand you're not much of a horror fan. So I wanted to leave it a little bit open so that you could sort of have your own take on this particular topic. Because if I'd have said your 5 favourite horror movies, you probably would have just been like, well... I've seen this one, and that's about it. So, do you want me to kickstart this one?
Yeah, go for it.
I've probably mentioned it already on the podcast at some point. It's one of my favourite horror movies of all time. It Follows.
Yeah, I think you have mentioned it.
It's a absolutely fantastic movie. It's very much inspired by the sort of old school days of horror, despite the fact that it was made in 2013 at this point, I think. It's one that I've watched countless times. I love everything about it, from the soundtrack, from the acting, from the story. If you're not a fan of horror, then you're probably going to think it's a lot of garbage. But if you like your horror, and you like your sort of horror tropes and the way that they can be used creatively, it's an absolutely top film that is fully worth a watch. And some of the cinematography in the actual movie is some of the best I've seen in the genre.
So what, gives a quick back of the box. What's it about?
So about the back of the box, it's about And Let There Be Light. It's about a girl who goes on a date and has a one-night stand. Shortly after the one-night stand, she's effectively kidnapped, taken to a dark sort of warehouse and told that she's been cursed. The curse being that there's this thing that's going to follow her only ever walk. It never runs. It doesn't think. It only follows. It only walks.
Right, yeah.
And it can take on the form of pretty much anyone.
Right.
And it's all about her sort of coming to terms with it and trying to figure out how to cheat the system. It's brilliant. Brilliant.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's definitely sounds more of a horror than my first choice, which I think we probably have mentioned this in passing on the pod, but I've gone for 7, the David Fincher one, of course, or should I call it SC7N?
I call it
7N.
7.
Yeah, it's a 7N.
7N.
But yeah, like that, such creepy film, man. Like with the, obviously it's all about the serial killer, and spoiler alert: the serial killer is played by.
No.
Should I not spoil it?
I know it's been out for years.
It's an old film, man.
It is an old film.
Hell?
It is really old film, and I feel like if you haven't seen it, you
Yeah,
probably should know. But at the same time, it's kind of the point of the film is that you're not meant to know who it is. So I think let's honour that one.
Fair enough. But yeah, it's a stellar cast. Like you got Brad Pitt, you got Morgan Freeman. Those are your detectives.
And Morgan Freeman's son.
Really?
Yeah, he plays the you know when they're in the mortuary.
Maybe.
It's quite early
It's been
on
a while.
in the film.
Right.
When they're in the mortuary, the sort of mortician is played by Morgan Freeman's son.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's,
there you go.
Yeah, that's a nice little bit part for him, I suppose. But yeah, that's a quality film. Like it's rated all the fucking time. Like it's always miserable and
apart
dark.
from the last scene, which
which is brilliant. Yeah, it's so clever.
Again, going back to cinematography, another great film that's just got so many like subtle references. That
so it's about them chasing down this serial killer, but he's building his crimes, I suppose, or his murders around the 7 deadly sins. So there's one for like gluttony or sloth or greed or wrath or whatever. And the way that they reveal the victims, I guess, they're like so clever. Like doesn't show you just like full on like a shot of the victim in whatever position that they've been left. Like straight away, there's always like, oh, you see a bit of a toe, or oh, there's their ear. And it's like, oh, this isn't, little bits and bats. And then it shows you, and you're like, whoa. And it's just a brilliant film. Again, one of those that if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. It's a must watch.
Because it very much inspired a lot of sort of copycats and a lot of not murders. Films.
No, yeah.
It inspired a lot of like copycat films, and for the sort of murder mystery style film, it was again genre defying. Like it completely changed the sort of cinema scope as to sort of how some of these stories were told.
Yeah.
And like you say, brilliant cast. Really, really good sort of soundtrack and, like I say, metaphorical use of cinematography. So, like, some of the cinematography used actually tells you exactly what's going to happen in the film. There's a particular shot which is infamous as it sort of explains the ending. But I won't spoil it. What's in the box?
No, you can't spoil that. Yeah. Fucking brilliant.
It's top film. Top tier film.
Yeah, top. So go on, what's your second one?
My second one, I'm just going to have to quickly bring my script back up because I haven't got these memorised. Hereditary.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Now,
we've spoken about this before as well, yeah.
I'm going to put Hereditary and Midsommar, because I can't split the two.
Okay.
Both directed by the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
Ari something.
Don't look at me.
Very, 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 very good director. He's got a new film coming out soon, which is more of a horror comedy. But Hereditary sort of loses me towards the end.
Yeah, the final act for me was, it just got a bit silly. And
it just gets a bit silly. Stupid. Whereas with Midsommar, it's kind of boring for the first hour, and then towards the end just peaks. He's a master of horror. He understands what he's doing. He understands pacing. He understands timing. And he follows the rule, which I think is very important when it comes to horror as a genre, which is less is more. Don't oversaturate something by like showing us the big scary thing in the first 10 minutes. Because the moment you show it us, it stops being scary.
Yeah.
Something that we are going to mention later in the podcast, Paranormal Activity, the very first Paranormal Activity film, did that brilliantly, the sort of less is more, and then decided, no, we're going to go all in, and more, and they fucked it up.
Well, I would argue that the first one was a bit shite anyway.
Oh no, it was shite.
I saw it in the cinema, actually. Yeah, and I remember just thinking, like, because it was sort of the craze at the time, like the found footage sort of horror thing, like, obviously Blair Witch that kicked all that off, which I don't think it's been done better than Blair Witch. Since Blair Witch, I don't think. Although this is from a dude that doesn't watch a lot of that stuff, so... Yeah, not, you know...
I like Cloverfield.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know. I suppose it is a little bit horror, I suppose, Cloverfield, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely some sort of tense scenes.
But yeah,
that's pretty
actually, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I quite like Cloverfield.
Go on, what's your second choice?
I've gone for, and I would argue this is probably my only actual horror film on this list. But I've gone for A Quiet Place, which
I'll give you, it's a horror.
More of I suppose, a creature feature, like.
Yeah, it's the sort of alien invasion style, like post-apocalyptic horror.
Yeah.
And brilliant film.
Yeah, it ticks a lot of the right boxes for me. With it, one being post-apocalyptic. Majority of the time there are some little flashbacks that you see. The use of silence is obviously good. For a film called Quiet Place, one of the characters, the little girl, she's deaf, so it shows it from her point of view for a little bit.
I do want to touch on her a little bit. So the actress that plays the deaf girl is actually a deaf person.
Yep.
And the entire cast and crew all basically spoke in sign language, like for the entire set, like entire filming of the film. Not just that, John Krasinski, who wrote the film. Oh no, sorry, he didn't write the film. He directed the film.
Yeah, he
directed the film and produced it. He and his wife, they took
Emily Blunt.
They took the actress out that played the daughter, and during that time only ever used sign language. And that film was brilliant as a way of expanding the deaf community. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that. Yeah,
and yeah, like the sections where they show it from her point of view, because they do it throughout the film, and at first it's sort of like, oh yeah, so you're seeing it from her point of view, but then they use it really well to amp up the tension, particularly in the sort of final act. So yeah, that's awesome. Again, another one I would say, watch that.
Yeah.
It's so good. So many good performances, and like it's good set pieces as well. Like, and the second one is pretty good as well. It's not as good as the first one, which often happens, but the second one's still pretty good.
Not watched it yet because I heard it basically ruins everything that was good in the first one.
Well, I don't understand how that's possible, because I actually take issue with that sort of phrase. Because how can it ruin a first film when you can just watch that first film?
So one of the things
the second one has nothing to do. I hate
one of
that
the
shit.
things that I read, and it was only basically, it was basically a review from somebody that watched A Quiet Place. But bear in mind, this person that wrote it was part of the deaf community, and they said that the second film doesn't lean as heavily into the sort of like silent aspect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get that, but they sort of did that in the first film.
Only little bits, though.
Like, yeah, but you don't want to do it too much. Like, you were saying it was... 30 seconds ago, you were saying, it was great for the deaf community. Which, that no matter what happens afterwards in the second film, it's still true of the first film. Yeah. So, yeah,
I'm just paraphrasing
what I mean?
What this guy... and one of the reasons
Fair
it put me
enough.
off is because I liked the fact that they used minimum sound in the first film.
They still do that in the second one, by the way.
I imagine they do, but to be fair, it can't be any worse than the fucking silence, which I don't know if you've seen that.
What's that?
It's like the Netflix clone of A Quiet Place, and it's really bad because it's got a really good cast.
I think you're thinking of a different... Are you thinking of...
No, I'm not thinking of
Bird Box.
Nope.
Oh, I was going to say... Because Bird Box is really good. I like Bird Box. Yeah, Bird Box is a good one.
No, the silence. It's got...
is it Stanley Tucci?
Stanley Tucci.
I've seen the trailer, and it's basically like Bird Box, isn't it? Or...
Well, it's more like A Quiet Place.
Yeah, but they're like flying creatures or something.
Yes.
Coming after him.
That hunt using sound.
Yeah. And they all came around the same time as well, these three films, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was strange.
It was a bit of an odd one.
It happens in Hollywood, though, where you'll get like 3 or 4 of the same kind of film that happen at the same time. Because there'll be a script, like, say, Quiet Place going around, and everyone's like, this sounds really good, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's trying to get in on it. The ones that can't get in on it, they're like, we'll just do something similar then. And, yeah, that's when you get stuff like this, which not always a bad thing, but sometimes, I guess, can be. But yeah, that was my number 2. You've technically already had 3, but go on, what's your number 3?
Oh, yeah, because I added Midsummer on there. Oh, well, you're going to fucking hate my next answer, because, again, it's one that I can't break up. Like, I have a general rule that if any sort of, like, horror film becomes franchised, it instantly should not be classified as a horror. Because the moment you try and franchise a horror, it just doesn't work. One exception to that rule is Evil Dead. I am a huge Evil Dead fan. I own the entire collection. So there's 3 original films plus a reboot. The reboot's actually pretty decent. The first 3 films go horror comedy, batshit horror comedy that makes no sense. Yeah. So by the 3rd one, he's in the Middle Ages. Fighting a horde of demons.
Does he still have his chainsaw on?
Yep.
In the Middle Ages?
He repurposes it to something else, but...
Like an axe or something?
Yeah. Motorised axe or some shit. I can't remember, it's been a while. And then finally, on that, Ash v the Evil Dead TV series, which ran for 3 seasons.
Technically not a film.
Technically not a film, but I'm including it on this list because Evil Dead is brilliant. again, it was one of those that changed the face of horror, because when the very first Evil Dead film was made, it was effectively a college project. So it had, like, barely any budget.
Yeah.
Half the people that were filming it were kind of new to their sort of roles.
Yeah.
So
they were getting paid in exposure.
Yeah, so it was very janky, but at the same time, it stands up today as still a top-tier horror film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole cabin in the woods sort of idea, like, they weren't the first to do it, no, but they were the ones that sort of kick-started the sort of copycats, where you started getting, like, like, literally, the film Cabin in the Woods.
Which I've seen.
Brilliant movie. I fucking love that film. But yeah, the Evil Dead franchise couldn't stay for me.
Fair. So that's like, what, 4 films, a TV show, and some games, actually. I remember the games not being too bad back in the day. PS2, I think. I had
it was basically a
Resident
games. Evil clone.
Yeah, but like a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
Didn't take itself too seriously.
Well, I don't think Resident Evil does either, to be fair.
I don't know. I feel like it. Obviously, it's very silly and sort of flamboyant, but it's that sort of. I've said this so many times, but it's that Japanese like weirdness where it's like it's almost like they're being weird for the sake of being weird.
You have said that a few times. I'm worried that you may be like cutting off all our Japanese listeners.
Oh yeah, all of. I love the Japanese people. It's nothing against. It's just you're weird. So, you know. They know what I mean. They're all sat there like, yep, he's right.
Hideo Kojima's like, me?
Well, because I had on my next one. I'm actually going to do 2 as well, because I can't really split them. I love them both. Same director as well, so I'm using your logic.
That's fine.
So M. Night Shyamalan, however you pronounce his name. I really like the Sixth Sense. So it's quite creepy, quite dark. And Signs, I like as well, which not really horror-y, but there are like spooky, like tense moments in it. And they've both got that sort of thing of a twist ending, which I think he does quite well. There's not many directors that do that in the modern day, really. Obviously, he's not perfect. Like, he also made the Legend of Aang film, which, God, don't watch that. Oh my God! Especially if you like the cartoon, don't watch that.
Not Broken. What was it?
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable. That was by Chai.
See, I quite like that one as well.
Split was kind of.
Split was pretty good.
He also did.
And then he had like an MCU one, didn't he?
Yeah.
Where he like joined them all together, which was so funny. It doesn't really work. Is it Shattered?
Something like that.
No, is it Mr. Glass?
No, it's.
Or is it just Glass? Yeah.
Unbroken split
Unbreakable.
glass.
Yeah,
Unbreakable
split glass. Yeah, Unbreakable glass split.
Unbreakable.
Yeah.
He also did a film called The Devil.
I'm not sure I've seen that.
Basically, it's one of those where it's a bunch of people stuck in an elevator.
Yep.
And one of them's the devil. Spoiler. And it's like a 90-minute horror movie. But I went to the cinema to watch it, and it was me and my mate, and we were both like big horror fans, so we sat there and we were watching it. And at about the 20-minute mark, I just leaned into him and said, "It's the old woman." And then for the rest of the movie, didn't think anything of it. Then it got to the twist and the reveal.
Yeah. Well, it was the old woman.
It was the
I don't need to watch it now. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, it's not very good. I don't recommend anybody watch it, to be honest.
Well, I actually got a review of his latest film, which I think is it just called The Beach or something. It's like a family that are on holiday. Yeah, they're on holiday. They're on a beach, and then there's something like they start to age really quick. Yeah, and literally one of them goes from like being a young man to like aging and then dying within like 45 minutes or something. So the review I got was from my mother, and she likes all of his other films, like Signs, Sixth Sense. That's kind of why I've watched them. I've watched them growing up. Probably watched them when I was too young. But yeah, so she watched it, and she said it's not his best, which is quite the strong language coming from my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it must be pretty bad. But I haven't seen it, and I will make my own mind up about it at some point.
He has done some, like, because Sixth Sense is pretty top tier film.
I think it's a classic. That, yeah.
And like that was kind of the movie that kick-started his career.
Yeah, it was.
But he's also done a lot of shit movies.
I say, well, he's one of them where, with the success of The Sixth Sense, it sort of gave him license to make these sort of less traditional films, but they're still in the mainstream. Like Signs is, it's basically like an alien invasion film, but
I didn't like that movie.
See, I liked it because I'm into like crop circles and all that like conspiracy shit, and there's quite a bit of that in there. And I quite like the twist in that as well at the end, which I won't spoil because I think the twists are the best parts of his films. So yeah, I'm having both of them.
That's fine.
So, yeah.
I mean, at this point, my top 5 has become like my top 10.
And the rest.
Yeah, and the rest. But I'm back to just one film now.
Good.
American Werewolf in London.
Oh, classic. Okay, I've seen this as well, yeah.
Absolute classic. It's funny. It's got some really creepy sort of like visuals and sort of like not because there's a sort of like dream sequence where he starts having like really violent dreams, and it's just quite a disturbing, unsettling scene to watch. But then on top of that, it's not just that. There's also the sort of practical effects that they use throughout the movie, which, especially when it comes to horror, I genuinely think the practical effects are always the way forward.
I think that's the way forward with anything. Use as many practical effects as you can.
Obviously, yeah. Like, at the end of the day, like, try and use as many as you can. But, like, there are times where practical effects just wouldn't work. Of
course.
I understand use CGI.
Yeah.
There's a really good horror movie called The Ritual. And it's got quite a few famous faces in. I can't remember the names of any of them at the moment because I'm shit and I don't do any research. But it's got a really good cast. It's all about kind of Blair Witch Project-esque. About a group of mates. They go on this like hike, they get lost, and they end up falling prey to some evil. Now, absolutely brilliant film from start to finish, apart from the last 15 minutes, where you see the sort of like scary monster that they're all terrified of, and because it's made from CGI, it's just
Well, I think good examples are if you look at the Rings of Power, which uses vastly probably like 90%, 95% practical effects for like the characters and the sets and stuff like that, which it's great. Obviously, you need CGI for making like the mines, the dwarves' mines and stuff like that, of course. But yeah, on the whole, it's mainly practical stuff, and I think that's brilliant. But then a different sort of fantasy prime Amazon Prime show was the Wheel of Time, which I don't know if you've seen that, but that's god awful. And there's times in that where there's enemies in it, and it's like you could have used practical effects for these, but they've used CGI, which probably cost more than it would have cost to do the practical effects, and it looks shit, and you're like, what the hell?
Marvel. Alright, yeah, they'll use practical effects when they can and stuff.
Yeah.
They rely way too heavily on CGI. Well,
I think it's unfair to say that they rely too heavily on it, because how else are you gonna have, Thanos fighting the Avengers? You know what I mean? It's sort of a different kettle of fish.
I get where you're coming from, but in terms of when you say Thanos and stuff, it would have been quite easy to sort of because obviously there's the height disparity.
Yep.
Which we've seen in the likes of Lord of the Rings. Doing shit like that is possible. Now I'm only using that because it's the first thing that came into my head, but throughout watching those films, there's a lot of times where I've seen them use CGI over practical effects. Close-up shots of when somebody's flying through water, or flying through the air or something. Now, obviously, I understand you can't physically make somebody fly, but you can film it in a certain way that it looks they're in that position and have stuff move around them. I'm not bothered about using CGI to touch up certain scenes, but using CGI is a way forward for everything. Christ, look at Jurassic Park, the very first one. That was more or less all practical effects, and it looks amazing. Even to this day, it looks amazing.
True, but there is an argument there that the dinosaurs in the reboots look better than the dinosaurs in the originals because it's CGI. You can tell that they're props in the original.
Yeah, but I enjoyed the original films more, and I love.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%, absolutely. The earlier films are the best, but yeah, I think we could go back and forth on this all day.
Same with Star Wars.
Yeah, but that's it. You need CGI for that. They basically invented CGI, like Lucas did, so that they could have the space battles and all that stuff.
Isn't CGI? I prefer when they use the puppets and shit like that.
Yeah, which they still do. If you watch Andor,
not as much.
If you watch Andor, they're all built sets and everything. It's awesome, man. It feels more like classic Star Wars.
Yeah, no. Say Baby Yoda in Mandalorian, puppetized.
And there are shots where he is CGI.
Yeah.
But most of the time he's practical.
Again, I completely understand that. They're on about remaking, they're on about making a sequel to the Gremlins films. I love the Gremlins films. They're brilliant. And they're on about remaking it. And there's a lot of argument in that a lot of people are like, well, if you're going to remake it, are you going to make it with CGI? If that's the case, then we don't want it. Because, Gremlins were these amazing puppets that, were so iconic that, everybody recognises Gremlins, even if you've not seen it.
Yeah.
So they're on about remaking it, but I feel like if they are going to remake it, then I'd be happy if they used a mixture. So, for the more, technical shots and stuff like that, then, yeah, of course, use CGI. But, do it where it looks good. Don't... Yeah.
Don't do a Star Wars Episode 2 and make Yoda bounce around.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, he'd been a puppet, because he was a puppet in Episode 1 as well.
Well, part of the reason why that, in my opinion, part of the reason why that looks so bad is because it was CGI against CGI. so it just looked computer generated, because the set that they were fighting in was also CGI.
Yeah, fighting on a blue screen, weren't they?
Green screen.
And as well, he was fighting Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee, who obviously wasn't doing all the moves, so they'd blue screened, his face onto. If you watch it again back, you can see how they've
awful.
Sort of tried to paste his face on.
Fucking awful.
And I rewatched The Mandalorian recently as well, and spoilers for Mandalorian, I guess. But when you see Luke Skywalker and it's the young Luke,
you're
like, that looks. It doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It's
rubbery.
You're like, oh, that's weird. Like,
it's not
a bit unsettling. Like, oh, yeah, not really there for that. But yeah, we're doing great for time, by the way. Let's get on to my next
Halloween
one.
Episode, though.
That's true. It's true.
It's gonna be a big one.
My next one, we've got. It's my number 4. I've gone for Nightcrawler.
Wait, you're number 4.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my choice. Yeah, my number 4.
Nightcrawler, the one with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Fucking
where he's like
good movie.
Yeah, so good. He's like a creepy, like photographer or like
he's
crime scene. Okay, so my number 4 choice. Yeah, is that what we're on? Me 4. What is it? So yeah, Nightcrawler. The Jake Gyllenhaal one, where he's a creepy weirdo that goes to crime scenes and like videos stuff, and then sells it to the news. That's basically the crux of the film, and it's just like creepy shit happens, and he's a weirdo, like a real strange one.
Yeah, it's actually based somewhat on a true story. An actual guy who sort of got like this weird buzz off, being able to get like the best stories and stuff like that, and started, well, I'm not going to spoil the film, but it escalates.
It's not even really for the stories. He just needs the pictures. Like, and the more grim, the more money he gets for it, and it's class.
Well, he becomes like it's not like a thrill, but he gets like he spirals into a sort of nasty habit.
He's not looking at it like, oh, these are dead people or whatever. He's like, oh, I can make money off this. He's like, this is quite easy.
Yeah, like he's found that like itch that he needs to scratch. Jake Gyllenhaal always.
Yeah, he's class.
Brilliant. Such a good actor. I actually don't think I can think of a Jake Gyllenhaal film that I've not enjoyed.
No, me either, to be honest. Like, there is one that I've never seen.
Oh, there's some that I've enjoyed more.
There's one called Source Code, which is like a time loop one. I've not seen it.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I get the vibe. It's probably not one of his best, but it looks okay.
No, it's directed by David Bowie's son.
David Bowie Jr.? What's his name?
Jones. He's not actually called that, but that's what he directs under.
Little pseudonym.
Something Jones. I can't remember his first name. It probably will come to me. He's brilliant. He's done so many good films. He's done Moon, which I don't know if you've seen that. So. If we ever do a sci-fi section, it's definitely one that I will mention.
Cool. Well, getting slightly off point. That was my fault. Did you go... Oh, this is your last one then? Your next one? Oh, go on.
This is my last one. So, my last one is a movie called Jacob's Ladder, which the original came out in 1994. There is a remake that was made recently, but it's offensive.
Oh, it's that good, is it? Yeah.
it's not even like... So there was a lot of criticism in the sort of... when it came out, because of the fact that, like, they changed certain aspects of the story. But it wasn't even that. It was just not a very good film. Like, I didn't enjoy it. It had... Again, it fell prey to using CGI, whereas the original film used mostly practical effects. And it was, like, mid-90s, so it was that, like, janky, almost horrible to look at practical effects. Was the movie that inspired Silent Hill. So not only do I love this movie, it's stemmed quite a lot of differences in the sort of like a lot of different franchises it's inspired from it. It's got Tim Robbins in from Shawshank Redemption. He plays the main dude. And as far as casting goes, that's the only person I can remember. It's brilliant. It's very trippy. Because a lot of it is sort of... You probably might hate it, because a lot of it's like a series of dream sequences. But it all comes together and sort of explains itself. And it's actually got one of the most beautiful analogies I've ever heard as an atheist of heaven and hell. Like, there's a bit towards the end of the movie that sort of explains the plot of the film. And it explains it so you change your perspective on the film completely. And it's brilliantly done. Like, even if you're not a fan of horror, it's worth a watch. I have it on DVD, so if you come round, we can put it on. But it's a brilliant film. Some really good performances. It's a really interesting story. And it explores a lot of different themes, and it inspired tons of other content. So it's one of my all-time favourite horror movies. It's brilliant.
Well, yeah, you've sold that. Well, my last choice is definitely not a horror film, but it is kind of dark, and there's creepy performances in it as well. Well, one in particular, but No Country for Old Men. You've seen that, surely? Yeah, great film.
Love that.
I love the directors. It's the Coen brothers. And Javier Bardem's character in that, with the weird little bowl cut that he's got, and that little, like, I think it's for putting down cattle. That little piston thing that he's got, like, that's just him carrying that round. You're like, what the fuck is he doing, this guy? And he, like, knocks locks out with it or something, and you're like, what the fuck? And yeah, he's so creepy. It's class.
There's a really interesting theory in sort of, because the Coen brothers, they're one of those that style of director where they like to sort of allude to more than there actually is in the movie. For like fan speculation and stuff like that. And No Country for Old Men, probably one of the best
it's up there,
films.
I'd say,
Fargo was pretty decent. The Big Lebowski.
They've got so many. Big Lebowski's a great one.
I actually quite liked their one for Netflix, The Ballad of...
Buster Scruggs.
Yeah. Kind of brilliant. I mean, some of the stories were kind of boring, but it was...
There's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as well. That's a really good one.
That's the one with George Clooney.
Yeah, 3 escaped convicts. They end up writing and releasing a song. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, they are, and Miller's Crossing.
Yeah, I've not seen that.
Not Miller's Crossing.
I don't know.
Is it Miller's Crossing?
But yeah, anyway,
I don't know.
No Country for Old Men.
Oh yeah, the theory. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's where I got sidetracked. The theory is that all three characters are actually different personalities of the same person.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's not that. Yeah. No. Because I'm pretty sure they interact with each other, like at some points. Like, do they? You know, it's been a while. I need to watch that again. I saw that at the cinema as well. I remember being like 14 or something and being buzzing because it was a 15 and they didn't ask me how old I was or anything. I'm like, woohoo. But yeah, that's awesome.
I absolutely love that movie. Like Javier Bardem steals
big time
performance.
I think that was the first thing I'd seen him in.
Then
that was
first movie I saw him in was. Well, actually, no. I think it might have been that. I was thinking Casino Royale, but he weren't in Casino Royale. He was in Skyfall.
No, he wasn't in. Was it Skyfall he was in?
It
was. Yeah. Skyfall. Sorry, no, it was. Yeah.
Because he's the best thing about that film.
I quite like the setting actually for Scotland. Scotland, I quite like the. That's pretty cool.
Oh no, yeah, don't get me wrong. To me, that's the best James Bond film there is. For me, it goes So for me, it goes Casino Royale and Skyfall. They're the only ones.
I was going to say Casino Royale is probably my favourite. And then I'd say Skyfall second. Have you seen the latest one? Yeah, it's not great.
Shit.
It's fine, like as an action flick, but it doesn't feel like James Bond.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, why are we talking about James Bond? It's the spooky episode.
Yeah. Well, that's that section finished with. So why don't we go on to your Noceba Burst plug for this week? Is it a creepy one? Ooh. Hey.
It is a bit of a creepy one. So I've always been fascinated with the idea of the Batman and Joker, like these two sort of polar opposites. And one day, when I was sat alone somewhere, came up with the idea of, well, what would happen if Batman just died? Just naturally. Just a power vacuum. What would happen to this character? How would the sort of Joker in this aspect react? So, I wrote a few chapters of a potential novel. It never really went anywhere, but there was a particular section of it that I really liked, and I have tied it into the Noceba-verse, so I'm kind of happy on that aspect. But it's this idea of this Joker-like character called the Cardinal, who he's at like the height of his crimes, you know, everybody's scared of him, he's exactly where he wants to be. And he's taken a hostage. He's threatening to kill the hostage, but the owl who's the Batman in this scenario, has other ideas, and it's just kind of a bit of a love letter to sort of the Batman Joker sort of scenario, which we've seen many a time now. You know, Batman and Joker, it's Sherlock and Moriarty. It's that rivalry kind of thing. But this is my love letter to it, and I actually wrote it while listening to the Placebo album, Without You, I'm Nothing. A little bit of trivia for you.
Did you mention a title? Did I miss the title?
Yeah, it's called.
Oh, is that what? Oh, right, that's what. Right, yeah. Okay. Right, cool.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, good shout.
And that'll be available on my Patreon. And
like and subscribe and all that stuff.
Thank you.
He's too scared to say himself.
I just get like
yeah, you get sick. Yeah.
I know. I just feel I just feel like an egotistical wanker.
Fair, yeah.
Right, so moving on to our main
and I'm looking forward to this one.
Obviously, we're getting closer to Halloween.
Hence the spooky episode.
Spooky season. The spooky episode. Now, do you know that Halloween originates from a old Celtic legend?
Do tell.
So, it stems back to a old historic custom that was held in sort of the Celtic areas, so parts of England, parts of Scotland, parts of Ireland, and it was called Samhain. Basically, it was the Celtic tradition that was equivalent to the Day of the Dead. So if you know the Mexican Day of the Dead, it was the Celtic equivalent. It was time where the dead and spirits could sort of enter Earth and come into our world and sort of communicate with each other. It was held sort of towards the end of the sort of year solstice. There's a lot of, if you look back at sort of tradition and lore and stuff, there's a lot of people that state that this is when the veil is at its thinnest. And, little known fact, Samhain ran through to Bonfire Night. Bonfire Night gets its name from Bonefire Night, where people would burn their dead in ritual ceremony.
Cool. So
there you go. Everything's connected. So in this season, we're just going to talk about some spooky ghost stories because, you know, could be true, Liam.
Yeah, so slight touch on that as well. Basically, for this format, you're going to be telling me some spooky ghost stories, and I'm going to be telling you how they're not ghosts.
Well, I've not just gone for ghost stories. I've gone for just like kind of scary stories.
Yeah, I'm game.
Like sort of campfire
let me get
tales.
my flashlight, put it under my face. Like, ooh.
Oh,
go for it. Scare me if you can.
So, first one, and this one, if I remember rightly, was called The Puppy.
The Puppy? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrifying, isn't it?
No.
Mummy... Wait. Mummy told me never to go in the basement, but I wanted to see what was making that noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see the puppy, so I opened the basement door and tiptoed down a bit. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mummy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mummy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad. I cried. Then Mummy gave me a cookie. That made me feel better. So I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet.
What the fuck? What the hell? Is that supposed to... What? Is that supposed to scare me? I just have questions. What the
I have questions. Does Jeffrey Dahmer live at your house?
That's fucked, man. It's kind of unsettling, I suppose. It's not really scary, but... Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's a boy
with no
in
hands
the
or
basement.
feet.
Like,
That's a weird one.
Was he born that way?
Well, why is he in the cellar?
Was he?
Like, is that all that was written?
It down there.
Like, there's nothing else. And
that was
I
all
think to point
written.
out, you got this from Reddit, right?
No, this one
right,
I got
okay,
from an article that I found. I will link.
Oh, please do, because I'd love to read that again.
Resources
Yeah.
that I've used. Right.
Go on.
Next one. I can't remember what this one's called.
I'll tell you what it's called when you're finished.
I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed."
Ooh. Is it called Two Boys, One Bed? Oh God, I'm sorry. I apologise. Oh, it's poor taste.
But I mean, to be fair, if that happened, that would be fucking freaky as shit.
Yeah, it would, but it also wouldn't ever happen. Unless he forgot he had twins, then yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he just got blackout drunk and he was just like, come on, bed, and then looks under and he's like, oh shit, there's two of them.
Like, maybe, yeah.
That kid needs to get better sleeping arrangements. That's all I need to say on that.
Oh, I love it. Come on, scare me.
Last night, a friend rushed me out of the house to catch the opening act at a local bar's music night. After a few drinks, I realised my phone wasn't in my pocket. I checked the table where we were sitting at, the bar, the bathrooms, and after no luck, I used my friend's phone to call mine. After 2 rings, someone answered, gave out a low raspy giggle, and hung up. They didn't answer again. I eventually gave it up as a lost cause and headed home. And I found my phone, laid on my nightstand, right where I left it.
Ooh. See, that's creepy, but not in like a ghostly way. That's like...
No, because that could genuinely
some fucker's been in your house,
happen.
Like, potentially robbing you, and you're just... Like, yeah, okay, that's creepy, but not so much, like, paranormal. That's just like call the police. Sort of creepy.
Well, do you want some paranormal?
Well, try me.
So I've not read these. These are screenshots on ghost stories. So people writing about their experiences reading a ghost.
Reading a ghost?
Reading a ghost? Seeing a ghost. Reading. So this is one by Muse 2007. A few years ago, I was staying at my grandparents' hotel they run, but my granddad had died not long before. I went to the hotel. Anyway, I sat at a table next to a wall and my uncle took a photo of me. When he looked at the photo, he saw a white hand next to my face, so took another in case it was something on the camera, but there was nothing there. I still have the photo, but can't
Well, if you
find
don't have the photo, then do you? Liar! I'm poo-pooing this one straight away.
I believe it could have been my granddad.
And I believe you're a fucking idiot.
Well, maybe don't call them a fucking idiot straight away.
That's...
Give them a chance.
I've heard enough. Like, I've still got the photo, but I can't find it. Tread.
Yeah, that really lets down your story.
To me, that.
Yeah, that's not a great... And then... Lady in a white dress.
That's original.
To start out... So to start out, this woman in the white dress is the first I've ever seen of a ghost. It happened when I moved to a new house for the first time pretty young and noticed something weird in my room. That I would have actually incredibly vivid nightmares. It felt like I was actually in them and I would wake up in a sweat so that I stopped sleeping in there. Ever since that happened, my mum told me that my sister knows about ghosts and just that there's an old lady there or something.
Oh, this one's... I must say, this one's scaring the shit out of me, man.
I'm losing focus. I'm moving on to another one.
Oh.
Hang on. I probably should have read some of these because I just took screenshots of like shorter ones.
Imagine doing some research for the pod. Weird.
That is a scary thought. Staying at this B&B farmhouse, was dreaming about some random witch I heard that was a local story in the area. Then suddenly woke up. It was about 2 a.m. and there was a knocking at the bedroom door. We had the section to ourselves, so knew no one was there. The bedroom doorknob started to turn and the door opened gently. We had locked the door before we went to bed. There was no one there. Couldn't sleep after that. Had all the lights on.
yeah, so with that, it's quite easy to poo-poo. You obviously didn't lock the door. And if it's like an old farmhouse B&B, it's probably just an old house and the door's crept up and there's been a bit of a breeze. So my thing with ghost stories, right, is like, why... It's only ever the people that believe in ghosts that talk about having maybe had a ghostly experience. You know what I mean? Never happens to a skeptic, does it?
Well, maybe tonight might change that.
Meaning, I'm worried.
So I have not what I would call no, because I use rationality and common sense and science and logic to sort of try and explain it, but in a way that could pacify it as being a ghost witnessing story.
Okay, that's a nonsensical sentence. That makes no sense. Yeah,
I know it is, but it'll make sense when I tell you the story. Well, I was going to save it for later.
Why?
Yeah, I was going to... Oh, no. I'm teasing about it. The time that I saw a ghost.
Oh, right, okay. Right, yeah, but yeah, save that, yeah.
I'm teasing it. It's part of the Halloween sketch. But, like, come on, you probably know some, like, classic ghost stories. Like, there
was... So, I can't remember... It's one of my grandmothers. So, I don't know... I can't remember which side. But they always told us about a story about... it was one of their dads, and he'd be on the way home from the pub, and he lived like in the sticks, so he'd cut across a field to get back, and there was a little stream that goes through the middle of this field. And he said one night he was on his way home, and there was a lady, funnily enough, in a white dress, stood on like sort of this side of the stream, like the same side as him, as he's getting to it, and she's just stood there, and he asks her, he says, "Oh, do you need a hand getting across?" Like, because he had to like do a little bit of a jump, and he offered her a hand, and she didn't look up at him. She didn't like respond to him at all, and he thought, he was like, "Well, yeah, I've asked if you want help." Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fuck her. And then jumps over the stream and like starts walking off. And he turns around and notices that she's still just on the other side of the stream, not moving. And when he gets home, he tells the missus, and she's like, "Oh, do you know that ghosts can't walk over water?" Exactly. That was exactly my reaction. So yeah, that.
I have heard this as a sort of idea. So, genuinely speaking, I don't... See, this is where it's going to start sounding a bit batshit, because I genuinely believe that there is a phenomena out there that we perceive as being ghosts.
Okay.
But it's not ghosts. So, if I tell you a property is haunted and give you a lot of spiel about how it's haunted and all this lot, you are going to perceive it as being haunted.
Not me.
No. But for argument's sake, you're going to perceive it being haunted. In the same way that you can go to certain places and just get a sense of the building, like without maybe knowing too much about it, but you can get like maybe it's purely aesthetic, maybe it's how the room's represented to you, but you can get this like feeling. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit mental.
I would argue it's already kind of mental.
Yeah, whatever. Albert Einstein said that energy is transferred always. I think that in places where people have these like weird moments where they fucking see a ghost, they're tapping into some sort of like radioactive nonsense, and they're fucking seeing a ghost because that's what they've been programmed to see.
Yeah, okay, yeah. What?
I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when people see ghosts, I think there's Haunting of Hill House explains it very early on as like you see. What
I think I know. I think I know what you're getting at there. Like, sometimes you'll think you've seen, say, like a person out the corner of your eye, and then when you turn and check, it's actually just like a coat stand. But for that split second where you saw it, you could have sworn it was an actual person. You know what I mean? So that is basically that's you, because obviously your brain and everything, it can react so much quicker than you can think. It sort of paints in the gaps of what you think it is going to be. So that's why it's, when you see the coat stand at the corner of your eye, it's a person. When you get like these people that say they've seen ghosts, they're always, people. They're always, because that's what we're expecting to see is a person. So if you see something out the corner of your eye, chances are your brain is going to paint it in like a person. Yeah, like, exactly. Because and it's a defense mechanism as well. Like, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been evolving defense mechanisms, and that is one of them. It's you see some movement out of the corner of your eye, you turn and you look at it. Your body prepares you for the worst possible outcome, which could be a marauder, a person. So yeah.
Are you telling me that if, say, me and you went to an abandoned insane asylum, right? No lights, just torches and shit like that, you would not sort of feel a bit freaked out just being sort of there at night?
Probably not. No. Freaked out by what? It's.
I feel like
I'm game. I'm game for that.
Because I have an overactive imagination, which sometimes has led me to having visual hallucinations, which aren't always fun. During a period where I was sleep deprived, I was at work and my computer screen that I was working on started melting.
Yeah, that's not fun.
That was pretty horrible. I once had a conversation with an old lady on the bus that happened.
See, and do you know what's weird is you were chatting with an old lady and not like a horse or something. It was a woman. It was a person.
Yeah.
Because that's how your brain works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I fully agree with that.
I want
to. I kind of don't.
Well, I want to
trust
touch
my
briefly
brain.
on, because you brought Albert Einstein into this, and I will not have you besmirch his name in trying to prove that ghosts are real, because that's not what he meant.
I'm not going to prove ghosts are real. I'm trying to prove that memories.
I sort of half agree with you in that I don't think there's ghosts. There's not. It's kind of a depressing point of view, I guess, but I believe that this is it. This plane of existence that we're on now, there aren't anymore. You don't go anywhere when you die, unfortunately. That's this. Yeah, exactly. Or if you choose to be cremated, whatever, however it goes. But yeah, in terms of the transference of energy, if you're a corpse in the ground, the energy is you being eaten by the worms and fertilizing the ground, blah blah blah, and then you'll turn into flora that'll feed fauna, and so that is sort of the transference of energy that he's talking about. I know. I just want to. I know you know, but our listener might not.
I know.
So, yeah.
But I just kind of, because I like the idea of ghosts. I'm one of those skeptics that wants it to be true.
Well, that's
like, I want ghosts and shit to be real, because at the end of the day, like, that shit's cool. Like, I've grown up my entire life like looking out for ghost stories and like wanting to listen to that shit. So for me, I want ghosts to be real. So I'm quite open to like doing the sort of like ghost tours and like listening to them and be like, oh yeah, there was a ghost spotted here in 1965. Have you got a picture? No. Well, then didn't happen. You know. So, and you know, there are some creepy things that I've read and seen that even I've struggled to sort of come up with an explanation for. I'm sure there is one. I'm just not looking hard enough.
Yeah, so
generally speaking,
that's one of the things that sort of annoys me about like conspiracy nuts is like just because they don't know the answer, they'll just extrapolate it and be like, oh yeah, so it means that aliens built the pyramid. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's. Don't get me wrong though. I find it fascinating. You know, this whole industry's built around the concept that ghosts are real. When obviously I vehemently believe that they're not. But there are, you know, it's like there's a whole industry there. Like I think I sort of throw it in with things like palm readers and. You know what I mean? Like witch doctors and you know, like that kind of stuff.
See, growing up, I've always been fascinated with like, folklore, because like when you start breaking like any sort of piece of folklore, when you start breaking it down, what it basically stems to is a story with a moral.
Yeah,
like. There was a really good example is there's an Icelandic tree spirit which is said to kidnap children. Now, he was said to look like a tree, he was said to be quite friendly, but then once you got in the woods with him, he turned nasty and he wouldn't take you home and blah, 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 blah. What's that a story of? Don't go into the woods.
Basically.
Stay out the woods. Stay out the motherfucking woods. That's effectively what majority of folklore is. Like, don't go to this place because this place is dangerous. Don't speak to these people.
Before formal schools or anything, it'd be like a village would have certain stories to tell the kids in order to teach them, you know, how to live, essentially. Like you say, like the evil woods, don't go to the woods. There'll be one about a sea creature. It's like, don't walk into the sea. You know, stuff like that. And
a kelpie. So a kelpie is again Gaelic. It's like a
big kelp
horse. Yeah, it's like a giant horsey
crustacean
sea thing. And no, it's not. Well, sometimes it's drawn with like the front half of a horse and the back half of a fish. Other times it's like a sort of fishy looking horse,
like a seahorse.
Yeah, just a seahorse on steroids. They were said to drown.
There you go.
Victims.
Don't go in the water.
Like, pull them to the river, and you know, will-o'-the-wisps were said to sort of drag people deep into the forest, so to the point that they would be lost. Basically, fireflies. Like if you look at how fireflies sort of act and the description of a wisp, and you know, all these stories, they're cool because they sort of make something out of something in nature. And you know, so like I've always been pro that side, been like, I want that shit to be real. I want a world where there's like goblins.
Oh yeah, I'd be well up for that. I'm just too much of a realist.
Like,
I can't fool myself. Do you know what I mean?
I'm like 50-50. I'm realist, but also
optimist.
A bit of a
fantasist.
Optimist.
Yeah.
Fantasist. That's the word. But yeah, no, I like shit like that. There's a lot of cool, creepy stories.
If I had a choice, I would rather aliens are real.
But what if aliens are basically just all these things from, like, folklore, but interpreted.
Yes, interpreted differently. Like, yeah, well, they might be.
Yeah,
I think there's that sort of thing, like when people talk about like, oh, it was aliens that built the pyramids, and like, well, might have been. They might have helped. They might have designed it. You know, they might have given us some technology to help us do it. You know,
So I've always found it easier to accept the idea of a polytheistic religion. So the idea of like Thor, Odin, Loki.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Plus Balder. Like I've always found it easier to accept that than the idea of a monotheistic religion. Like always. Like the idea that there's like another race that's like not race, but like another sort of species that's like higher than us, that looks like us and stuff, like makes more sense to me than the idea of some big
thing in the sky that knows everything. And I think like I'm not religious, but I think the older I get, I'm sort of less atheist and sort of more agnostic, in that I'm like, I don't believe any of the religions have, you know, get it right, if there is something higher than we are, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything higher than we are, you know. And it's one of those things, nobody will ever prove it, but yeah, it's like I'm sort of more open to the idea than I was when I was younger.
Same amount of openness. I'd sooner start my own religion.
You mean
than
a cult?
Join another.
Yeah.
Whichever.
You've got strong cult energy. You have, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with my Superverse. But yeah, moving on to next topic, because we might
have to drop something, but yeah, it's fine. Shall we go on to? Should we go on to our favourite serial killers? I want to start this for a reason. Basically, I've got an actual connection to this serial killer. I'm not sure if I've told you off air. I have, haven't I?
No, you have.
It's cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, you know, he's a horrific person. He's a horrific dude. But yeah, so when my auntie and uncle got married in, I think it was like, because I asked my mum about it recently, it was like 89 or 1990, something like that. So yeah, they got married, sorry, and my auntie, they had a family friend who was Dr. Harold Shipman. And he was at the wedding. He'd been a family friend of theirs for years. He was their family doctor.
He was prosecuted in Preston.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, well, they lived in Denton at the time. My grandparents did anyway. And yeah, like this, I've seen pictures of, like, where he's having a laugh. He's sat at the table with like my auntie and stuff, and so weird. I'm like, what the fuck? And then obviously years later, turns out he's been getting old women to sign their wills to him, and then he kills them. And like, one of the worst things as well is that they don't know how many. Which, that's scary, man.
Like, because he was quite a well-respected GP.
Big time, yeah.
Like he was sort of the perfect.
Well, that's it. But it's such a trait of serial killers, is that until people know, they're like a fine member of society. A lot of them, you know. Because
I still remember like the sort of the case breaking, because it was quite. It was like early noughties, weren't it? And he was nicknamed Dr. Death, and I've seen a few things on that, and I remember, like, I'll always remember you telling me that you
Yeah,
have a connection
so weird.
to him. That is, yeah, that's pretty.
It's fucked. It's fucked up, man.
It's pretty fucked up, yeah.
I love how we've named this section as well. Our favourite serial killers. Like, we're kind of sickos.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think people will get it. They understand.
To be fair, it's more about the actual
Yeah.
case behind it. And
It's so
because,
interesting,
you know,
man.
At the end of the day, what they do is horrific, but learning from these mistakes, learning to spot where society could do better at helping people. A lot of serial killers could have very easily been avoided if the correct care was taken when
A lot of the time, it's
was needed.
It's their upbringing, isn't it? And yeah.
So one of my favourites. It was a guy that was technically never caught. The Axeman of New Orleans. He's been referenced in American Horror Story, and obviously what he did was horrific. He murdered a bunch of Italian Americans with an axe in New Orleans, hence the name. But there's something that I kind of admire about him, because he wrote a letter, or supposedly he wrote a letter. The letter has been speculated as being fake, but he said that anybody that was playing jazz was safe from his axe.
So is that why there's such a huge jazz scene in New Orleans? That's fucked.
Well, I think there was always a jazz scene before that, because jazz came from the sort of like...
It's the speakeasies, wasn't it?
The sort of... Well, it was more the sort of like black entertainers, especially in sort of like areas like New Orleans where there was high black communities. There was a lot of like jazz music that was coming out of there. Jazz, if I remember rightly, comes from it being played in brothels, and it was a sort of taken from jasmine, which was the perfume of choice for a lot of the women that worked in brothels at the time.
Yeah.
So it was jazz, and obviously it was sort of New Orleans and the southern area that created a lot of the big jazz sort of bands and stuff that we see today. But yeah, the Axeman of New Orleans wrote in a letter that if anybody was playing jazz at a certain time, they were safe.
Yeah.
You weren't going to murder them.
So everyone just started listening to jazz all the time. Did the killing stop?
Yeah. Yeah, and not because he got caught. They think either he was
something
arrested
else,
for other crimes and just never got tied to the murders. He basically went into the wrong house and got murdered.
Maybe
himself.
There's
a lot of different theories
really,
as to what happened to him. But it's one of my more favourite cases because it's just a bit open-ended and there's an element of jazz in there, which, I like. I like my jazz music.
Kind of similar, like you could draw comparisons with anyway, would be Jack the Ripper. How, did he write letters to the police as well, or were they deemed to be fake as well? Like, there's a lot of speculation around that, isn't there? But how...
Majority of the letters, bar one, were deemed to be fake. So the infamous one, which was from hell, that was deemed to be fake.
Yeah.
So, but there was one where it was sent with, it was like a postcard, and it was sent with part of a kidney and an ear. that one is the only one, as far as I'm aware, that it's still undetermined as to whether or not that was real
that's the only one that's got a chance of still being real.
Yeah. I've actually been to most of the spots where the murders took place. One of my favourite areas of London, because there's an amazing art gallery there, there's some really nice pubs, and there's a really nice market there, is Whitechapel. So every time I go down to London, I usually go to Whitechapel and check it out. And I've been to the 13 Bells pub, which is the pub that the police were at celebrating the night the first victim was murdered.
Yeah. Well, I just think one of the things I find interesting about him is that obviously they don't know who he was. I don't think it'll ever be solved. But you can, if you've watched any sort of documentaries about serial killers in general, you can sort of see the pattern of him and how his killings were quite spaced apart in terms of time. And then there's the famous one, obviously, where he was disturbed, and then went and killed someone else the same night. And he'd never done two in one night before, and it was like, it's because he got disturbed. He needs to finish his process, sort of thing, and taking specific body parts, and it's just interesting that you can't argue that modern society creates serial killers when society in general has been creating serial killers for at least hundreds of years.
Oh yeah, there's the case of the bloody Baron, all the way back in the sort of 1700s. And she was responsible for killing, I think it was over 60 young women in the area. And she used to bathe in their blood, and she was quite fucked up what she was doing. So serial killers aren't anything modern. It's why it pisses me off whenever you get articles that blame video games and violent media.
That's always going to happen though, because back in the day, when Jack the Ripper was doing stuff, they would have blamed books or some sort of science. Medium that was around, whatever the newest medium was at the time, always gets the flack. It's the same when radio came. They were saying, "Oh, you listen to that? I mean, that's the way the devil can get into you." Oh, so it's
because there's stations. That,
there's always whatever. It'll just keep getting flack until there's a new kind of media, and then that'll take the heat. Which you could argue that's social media, and social media does get a lot of the flack, but it's also used to throw flack at other stuff. So it's a bit of a this and all, a bit of a this one.
Bit of a mixed bag. But I do find the whole case is fascinating. Obviously I watched Jeffrey Dahmer, found that fascinating. And I toe a very thin line, because I know there's certain people that follow serial killers to a point where they give them a legacy. This idea that they are greater human beings than what they were. No, they were fucking scum. They took the life of another human being. But I see them going back onto the folklore and stuff like that. They are the modern monsters. That these stories that I used to love of people that changelings that would kidnap young children and then replace them and feed on the family. Them stories have evolved now into me having a fascination for serial killers and seeing where that line is crossed. That's what I'm looking for. What point did they say, right, this is what I'm doing? And most serial killers, you can find that line and say, maybe if they got help at this point, that could have been avoided.
I think it's quite interesting with serial killers how because they say that every serial killer is a psychopath. They have that psychopathic tendency, but not all psychopaths are serial killers. So it's that sort of perfect storm of, you know, the psychopathic tendencies, but then also like a violent, you know, harsh upbringing. And then when those two merge together, that's when, you know, people become capable of horrendous shit. And it's kind of morbid to look at it all, but that is in and of itself, it's just interesting. Like seeing how other people are raised and stuff. Anyway, that's always quite interesting from the outside. But then when you already know that this person's gonna grow up to be, you know, like my next one, for example, is Ed Gein. He used to make shit out of people.
Yeah.
Like some stuff that you wouldn't even think of. Like he made a whip out of a human spine. And you're like, well, it's like what?
He made lamps.
Also, he made gloves out of people's hand skin. You're like, what the fuck? Like,
so he inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He didn't actually kill that many people. I think he only killed.
I think they only did him for 3. It's one of them.
Well, a lot of the things that he took from a local.
Yes,
graveyard.
no, that was true as well. But
he was a serial.
It was the skin as well.
digger.
Like you know, you need to get to the skin quick to be able to preserve it. So they reckon, like let's say if they went back to it with like modern science, they reckon they'd be able to increase his sort of death toll, I guess. But yeah, he was a fucked up individual. I remember seeing these. He made some wingback chairs and upholstered them with human skin, and there's like an ear here or like fucking fingernails here. And you're like, oh my god, it's like, ugh. But yeah, like interesting.
Yes.
Ugh. Just creepy, but interesting.
Yeah, like I mean, and it's kind of practical. You've got to admire him for making.
Well, yeah, that's it. He was quite the carpenter as well, by the sounds of it.
But IKEA wasn't
True.
around then, so you had to make your own furniture. Which
he just used the materials at hand.
You live near yeah, exactly. Like you may have used a hand in some of them. But yeah, one of my favourite is not really a serial killer, but it's quite a high class murder. It's the story of the murder of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia. Kind of a sad case because her murderer was never actually convicted. There is speculation that it was a doctor in the area called George something.
Yeah, don't mind. You don't need airtime.
No. Because obviously the main victim was Elizabeth Short, who was a 23-year-old actress. But the sort of like when you start looking into who it was, and like you see like the investigation was flawed heavily because the police just didn't really know what to do. They'd never really dealt with anything so barbaric, and it was a little bit like she's dead. What do we do? And it's a real shame because it was quite a. I think it was quite a solvable case. If maybe people had, like, if social media had been around back then and stuff like that, I think it would have been a case that would have been probably solved very quickly. But because it was just another dead girl in sort of Hollywood, nobody really paid that much attention, and the case very quickly went cold, only for it to sort of become a sort of infamous case that still fascinates people today.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's our favourite serial killers.
Yeah. So, how do you survive a gang of vampires?
I went quite traditional. I thought, what's the good anti-vampire stuff So I'm going to be donned with a necklace of cloves of garlic, of course, because it's well documented they hate garlic.
Okay.
Which, whoever the fuck came up with that, he needs a high five, because it's so ridiculous. Stay outside.
Probably some obnoxious like French dude was like, don't go out in the dark, stay here, eat at my restaurant, I'll keep you safe from the vampires. And they're like, oh, how are you going to keep us safe? And he's like,
Garlic.
Garlic. Yeah.
There's your classic sunlight, they don't like that. Crucifix for some reason, because they're all scared of Jesus, I guess. Silver.
So the reason why, silver and Jesus. So part of the reason why that is a thing. Now, obviously, I'm not saying this is true because vampires aren't fucking real unless you count Pete Murdoch. But so the reason why silver and Jesus is because, according to the Bible, the first vampire was the guy that betrayed Jesus.
Oh, Judas.
Or Cain.
What, as in Cain and Abel Cain? Oh, so he's Adam and Eve's son.
One of those two. Yeah. So the reason why the silver is because Judas was paid with 30 pieces of silver.
I did know that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's the supposed.
Which is weird because silver also works against werewolves. So go figure.
Judas was also a werewolf.
Holy water, because again, Jesus. Steaks, which I always kind of like.
Yeah, they hate good ribeye.
Only if it's medium. If it's anything above a medium, they hate it. They like a bit of red on the plate, don't they? But obviously, I mean, bits of spiky wood, which I don't get why a sword wouldn't work. Or does it work? I guess in some pop culture it probably does. And I sort of wanted to use this to touch slightly on Arcane's next game, which we both love. Arcane. Yeah, it's a 4-player open world vampire hunting thing called Redfall. And yeah, that looks really cool. And they look to have it figured on how to survive a gang of vampires. So yeah, check them out. Go on.
So my answer, bit simpler. Family size garlic bread.
There you go. But
cheesy one as well.
Does it mean that you can't eat it?
No, I'm going to eat it.
But then
all of it, yeah.
But
cheesy garlic bread.
You've got nothing to defend yourself with.
No, because I'll have garlicky breath. And I'll have like garlic.
What if they? Well, are you eating this garlic bread intravenously? Like having it dripped.
No, what I'm doing is before I eat a slice, I'm rubbing it on my skin.
Okay.
I'm gonna have terrible acne for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you'll stink.
But I'll be vampire proof.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I was gonna trip you up and be like, well, if it's just on your breath, they'll just sneak up behind you. But
no, get it on the back of my neck and everything.
Yeah.
Roll around in that garlic bread. Get all that garlic oil on me.
Garlic bath. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just gonna stink like a garlic farmer.
There's the great bit of lore about vampires where it's like, oh, they can't come into your house unless you invite them, because vampires are obviously polite killers. Like, what the fuck? So yeah, just don't invite them in.
Let me come in and drink your blood.
No. Okay. No. Are you sure?
Bye.
Yeah, quality.
Let me in.
And failing that, I would get Sarah Michelle Gellar in. She'd protect me.
I mean, I don't think Sarah Michelle Gellar would know that much about.
She should. She played Buffy for like 5 years.
I think you'd want Yeah, but they were fake vampires.
Oh, I
They're
forgot.
not real vampires.
Real vampires.
Sparkle.
I forgot. Yeah. Okay. Wesley Snipes.
Real vampires
then
sparkle.
he was Blade, and he's been inside.
Yeah, if you can
he's
get
already
him out
out
of prison.
Yeah, toughened him up.
Yeah, I know he is, but still. Like, it
Yeah,
was for
nothing
tax
funny.
evasion.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, come back when you've done a murder.
Come back when you killed some vampires.
Yeah. Kill the vampires. Shall we move on to the hypothetical? I feel like this is a long episode.
Yeah, we're just over the 2 hour mark. Yeah, it's not too bad, But yeah,
actually, it's not too long. We could carry on talking for a little bit.
well, we could.
Oh, actually, no. Before we close up, because this is the spooky one, I'm going to take a quick break because I've got my creepiest thing you've ever witnessed. So, prepare to be shocked and amazed. And I don't know why I'm trying to pause on Zoom because it's not on there.
No, don't pause.
Do I need to pause? Okay.
All right.
I'm just gonna go for a quick
me
test.
too, actually. And we're back. So, yeah, go on. I'm interested to hear the creepiest thing you've ever experienced.
So, when I was younger, no, I do have a rational explanation for what I'm about to say. So don't worry too much. But when I was younger, when me and my mum moved up north, we lived in an old, sort of terrace house. And the upper floor was like an L-shaped corridor. So at the long end, you had my bedroom. Then you had the bathroom, and then you had my mum's room. And one particular night, I got up because even as a child, I'd always kind of struggled to sleep. I've always struggled staying or going to sleep. And this one particular night, I got up and walked to the toilet, went to the toilet, but I did it all in the dark, which was unusual for me. Normally, I was a bit of a scaredy pants and would have to have the lights on. As I was doing my business and having a wee, I looked over and I'd left the bathroom door open. And there's a sort of unspoken rule in my parents' house that bedroom doors have to be shut at night. It's just a thing that we all have. You don't sleep with your bedroom door
agree.
open, it's weird. And as I went to the bathroom, mum's bedroom door was shut. And as I was doing my business, I look into the corridor and I swear I saw the shadow, a shadow of somebody sort of shush me and then walk away. Nothing really of it. Didn't at the time find it that scary. It was more just walked out, washed my hands, walked out, and my mum's bedroom door was open. And went to bed. Now, afterwards, that's when I was a bit oh, hang on, what the fuck was that? Once I'd sort of got back into bed, I was like, wait, what the shit was that? And I started panicking. So, it's the only sort of my ghost story that I can tell. Do I believe it was a ghost? No. What I believe it was a mixture of my mind playing tricks on me because I was partially sleep deprived and I was fucking tired. I was probably half asleep, so it was probably some sort of weird dream sequence, but in real life. And the fact that my mum's door was open probably wasn't, probably was. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's irrelevant. There was nobody else in the house. Ghosts aren't real. But it was creepy after the fact. Because, as a child, I remember it so vividly as well. Remember the outline of the figure. It wasn't just my mind playing tricks on me. It was almost like I was still asleep, like, and seeing it there. But yeah, that was a pretty spooky experience for me. What's your spooky experience?
I was thinking back, and I think I sort of decided at a very young age that I didn't believe in ghosts, and that's sort of plays into why I don't really have any creepy stories. One that popped into my head though was when I was younger, in my teenage years, I was having a bit of a party, and I went out back for a smoke, and I had some friends stood there, and they were. By the way, my house, my parents' house, growing up, backed onto a graveyard that was about 250, 300 years old. Which should be pretty creepy. Maybe that's why I don't believe in ghosts and stuff, because my bedroom, from the age of sort of 10 or 11, the bedroom window looked over the graveyard. So maybe I'm just sort of, maybe I'm just at peace with all that shit. I don't know, maybe. But yes, we're out the back, and a couple of my friends are, they're sort of looking at me as I come out, and they're like, "Can you hear that?" And I'm like, "Hear what?" They're like, "Listen." So we went quiet for a minute or two, and I'm listening, and it sounded like somebody shoveling dirt, like somebody was digging a hole. But it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. It was dark, but obviously we were right on the other side of a wall that had a graveyard on the other side. So I'm like, "Is that someone digging?" And like, they're getting a bit freaked out, and you can sort of get to the graveyard out the back of the house. Like, there's some little steps that go up. So I was like, right, I'm going to go have a look. And they're like, no. Because what if it's somebody digging a hole at 1 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah, nobody wants to go and find somebody digging a hole
in the graveyard. You're
at 1
like,
o'clock
what the
in the
fuck?
morning.
Like, what?
It does remind me of that joke, though. A guy goes out for his morning cigarette, and he sees the girl next door, little girl, digging a hole. And he's like, "Oh, what are you digging a hole for?" And she's like, "Oh, my goldfish died." And he's like, "All right, bit of a big hole for goldfish in it." And the little girl just looks up at him and goes, "Yeah, because it's in your fucking cat."
Oh, nice. Well, it works on a few levels, that, because it's like almost like the little girl killed his cat.
That's very much how I take it.
I quite like that. Just to finish my story, there was nobody digging. It was the wind.
What was it?
Blowing an antenna that was on top of someone's house, and it just happened to be making exactly the right sort of sound that sounded like digging.
But that's it. Like, a lot of the time, like, these ghost stories and stuff. Like the other day when Coop claimed to see a ghost at the top of my stairs. Like, it was more than likely a headlight going past that was, like, reflecting on something. Like, a lot of the time, like, these people that claim to see ghosts, like, yeah, I agree, they're probably seeing something.
Yeah, that's it. They're not concocting it out of thin air. It's their brain, doing shit. That's what it always is. It's always your brain being smarter than you are and doing shit and messing you up.
Exactly. And then you cough and then you die. But yeah, like, we've basically solved that there's no ghosts, so don't expect a second.
Well, not until this time next year, at least.
Well, no, because we've
True.
solved.
We might solve something else next time, though.
We should do an episode on aliens.
100% agreed. Yeah.
We should do an episode on aliens, and I feel like you could take the forefront of that one, because I'm very skeptical.
I have a healthy skepticism, but I would definitely be the more open of the two of us, I think, on that subject. So I'm happy to take the lead on that.
It's kind of weird, actually, because I'm pro ghost, you're pro alien.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's weird. Yeah.
Please hit me.
Bit of a shit one, because I wrote it this morning on my break when I was at work. But I'm just curious. Would you rather be a contender on the Squid
Okay.
Games, or a victim of the Jigsaw Killer?
I'm assuming a victim of the Jigsaw Killer means I'm already dead.
Well, no, because the Jigsaw Killer... So,
Yeah,
you
from
know
Saw.
Jigsaw Killer
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Saw franchise, yeah? Yeah, yeah. He doesn't necessarily kill his victims.
I would agree. I would argue that he does
survive.
kill them. He puts them into these situations where they have to like win a little game or whatever, or they die. So I would argue he kills them. But there are the odd one that survive. There are some that survive, aren't there? So I guess
his logic as a serial killer is that he doesn't actually kill anyone. He merely orchestrates these.
He doesn't actually
traps.
plunge the knife in, but he sets everything in motion. You know, he's still drugging and kidnapping people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The list of crimes. I'm pretty certain he's not going to argue against that. Like, you know, he's not going to be like, I didn't drug him and I didn't kidnap him,
but I didn't kill him.
But they could have, like, because there's basically a guy on YouTube, I can't remember what he was called, but he basically ran through all the Saw films and explained quite easily how you could survive each one of them. And, like, you know, like, each of the things, like, you're meant to sacrifice something in order to survive, but people are too, like, egotistical and, you know, strive themselves to be like, no, I'll survive my way. So, like, the classic example is the guy who's, like, chained by his foot and he's given a hacksaw. Like, you can survive if you saw your leg off.
Yep.
Like,
which I think for the first
film,
you a chance. That's a great concept. Like, I thought it was brilliant. Like, really good, the first film. And then, then it just all... They're like, oh, well, we need to make it bigger and bloodier and longer. You're like, no, you don't. Like, the first one was a really compelling film. Just leave it there.
Yeah, the first one was pretty good. I mean, I kind of like the franchise, but not as a horror franchise, just as mindless garbage. That, you know, like, I've seen every single one.
So remind me again, so Squid Games, there's only the one winner, isn't there?
Yes. I've not actually seen it.
You should watch that. It is good. Like, I didn't get onto it. I got onto it a little bit later than everyone else because I was like, I'll wait for the hype to die down, and then maybe I'll watch it. And I couldn't stop watching it. You know, it's one of those. The episode finishes. It's 1 a.m. I'm like, I should really go to bed, but I want to watch this next episode. So yeah, it.
Oh yeah, no, like, it's definitely on my watch list. It's just I've not got around to it yet. I know what the concept is. You know, it's pretty generic. It's like a group of people. They're all competing for basically a lifetime.
They're playing kids' games, like like schoolyard games, basically. Yeah. But if you lose or fail, you're dead. And it's just it's cool. I'm weighing them up, and I'm thinking, well, there's only one winner from. Like, there's like 200 and odd, I think, when it starts off the Hunger Games, if memory serves. Squid Games. Hunger Games. Squid Games. Whereas with the Jigsaw Killer, like, how many actually survived his stuff? Presumably it's like one a film, like one per film, something like that. If you averaged it out,
it's not many.
But I reckon it's more than. I didn't think this at first, but I'm going to go Jigsaw. I'm going to be a Jigsaw victim. I think I've got more chance of sacrificing something, you know, whatever that might be, to get out of that, than I am beating 200 odd other people in silly games, where a lot of it comes down to chance. Yeah,
that's it. Because as well with the Squid Games, like. You know how annoying it is when you're playing like video games and stuff, and like especially when it's like the like sequence where you've got to press them and stuff. and you'll know the sequence, but you press the wrong button out of like impulse or something. Like, just something annoying like that happening, you just press the wrong button and then your head gets blown off. And you're just in this moment of like, fuck!
Yeah.
As you die.
Yeah, at least with Jigsaw...
Whereas at least with the Jigsaw...
Usually it's just one person, so it's like, it's all on me. Like, there's, in Squid Games, there's lots of team games as well, where you've got to build a team, and it's like, you've got to trust these random strangers. No thanks. I'd rather just, you know... Nah.
Lop off my arm.
I'd rather it was a foot, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not even that. I just think in general, I'd rather lose a foot than a hand.
That's true, because with a foot, you can like...
Well, I feel like the prosthetics these days are better than actual feet. Like, when you see some of the top grade, like, some of the technology in them is ridiculous, man. I tell you, have a look at some prosthetics. There's some amazing shit out there, man.
Eve Tech Industries, Freaks Among Us.
Oh right, okay, yeah, like a body modder thing.
They build
augmentations,
like prosthetics.
Yeah,
pretty much. I think I'd probably go with Squid Games. Yeah, I'd probably just try and sort of win.
Yeah, you've definitely not seen the show.
Well...
Oh, man.
You know, I'd just sort of, like, hang out near the guides. Just
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to do that. Oh. Yeah.
Maybe I need to watch the show. But I don't fancy my chance.
It's really good. There's loads of good characters in it as well, and... Yeah, I said this.
There's like a banana man or something.
It's been a while since I watched it, but yeah, maybe. He's not made of bananas. Yeah.
That changes it.
I can't remember. There is something to do with banana.
I only want my content to have banana men in.
Well, yeah, that was another. Well, our first ever special episode, I guess.
Yeah, very, very special.
Cool.
Halloween special. I hope it was creepy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you know me, I don't like creepy, so I hope it was a nice blend of, oh, that was a bit creepy, and then ha ha ha, that was funny. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been another episode of the thing.
We'll just call it the Halloween special this week.
By thing.
Yeah.
Just the Halloween special. I hope you enjoyed it.
Bye, guys. Like and subscribe. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Oh, wait, I'm not recording on that.